that held us down.
Held us down.
But now it seems like things are finally coming around.
Things are turning around.
I know we've got a long way to go. Where we'll end up.
Folks, yeah, we got a long way to go. But we've got the energy to get there. We've got all the reasons in the world to not be afraid and not let anybody turn us back, turn us around, clown us out. But they're going to try. That's their job. I have a great friend I grew up with back in Joliet, Illinois. My great friend, Joe Daniels. I'll mention his name because he is on my mind. Joe was a great friend coming up, but he eventually owned a car dealership. And we would talk on the phones now and then, and I'd say, Joe, how you doing? He said, well, I'm still passing. I said, what do you mean? Well, see, actually, he meant he wasn't passing. He said, people give me the stupid test. I got the stupid test going all the time, and my job is to not pass it. People are constantly giving me the stupid test. So my advice to you guys is still, let's not pass the stupid test. What does that mean? That means we have the ability to be smart, stay smart, act smart. And if we don't, that's up to us. So, okay, there we go. I just crashed the, all right, there'll be no Facebook Live today. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so the stupid test. Once again, Joe Daniels gave me the advice. He called me Butch. He said, Butch, don't ever pass the stupid test. That's the, and the telephone now is helping me out. It says scam likely when some folks that are calling that have a reputation with the phone company of making scam calls and of getting people involved in things that are not of their own benefit. But you know, that's all part of what we have to do. We have to think logically. We have to figure out that there are things out here that are not good for us. We cannot constantly look for them, the other people, to hang out, the right choices for us to make, and that no matter which one we make will be okay. It's not going to be that way. We've got some real issues that we need to deal with, and if we don't deal with it correctly, then we'll be in an incorrect position. We have a guest on the phone today, Mr. Attorney Channing Hawkins of Bracy Hawkins Law. Channing is a local, when I say local, he's an Inland Empire product. He's someone who could make it anywhere. He is making it in the Inland Empire as a great lawyer. He is experienced in employment and labor law in particular, board governance within the public and private sector. He advises his clients on a variety of employment, labor issues, including contract negotiations. I want to emphasize negotiations, personal practices, and policies. The Fair Labor Standards Act, laws and regulations of public employees' retirement plans, the Brown Act, public records, arbitration. But government knows how the government operates. He knows how labor operates. He knows how employment rules, how people are supposed to be treated. He's an expert in arbitration. That means he can understand both sides of the argument. And during this time and period that we're in, understanding and being able to, advocate for your enemy or advocate for your opponent mentally. So, I mean, it gives you an advantage if you can, I guess in the old days they would say, stand in someone else's shoes, understand their viewpoint. As an attorney, I suppose you have to do that. It's like a coach of a team. You've got to know the strengths and the weaknesses of other people's arguments. You've got to know that they think they're right. And as such, you've got to, if you're in a negotiation, if you're in an arbitration, you can't treat a person like they are lying, though some of them are. And to me, a liar is that person that knows they're not telling the truth, that knows that they want to manipulate the circumstance by altering the facts. We've got a president of the United States who wrote in a book that part of his deal making is that he sticks to his guns, whether he's right or wrong. As a matter of fact, there's a portion of his book where he says, it's, even if it's a lie, the more you repeat it, if you just keep repeating it, people will believe it. Brings me up to some of the questions that we're going to have later on today for our guests. But let me say hello to Attorney Hawkins. How are you this morning, Channing? I know he is, I can't hear you. Do we have Channing on?
Oh, good morning.
Oh,
good
yeah.
morning, Mr. Allen.
Hey, how are
Good
you,
to hear
my
your
friend?
voice this morning.
Good to
Glad
have.
to be on the show.
Good to have a voice, and it's certainly good to have you on the show. And I know that you're doing good daddy work this morning, which is important. I
Yes.
probably respect and admire that more than some of the brilliance displayed in the courtroom. Because everything we do outside of the house is for the house. Everything we do outside of the family is for the family.
Absolutely.
This is why
Absolutely, 100%.
yeah, I'm an advocate for that second chance for anyone who's had a problem in life, but once they have their children, if they're able to have that second chance, I believe there's enough enthusiasm toward doing the right thing that society does itself a favor by giving that second chance to the parent. But congratulations on being a parent. You've got, what, 4 children?
4 children, yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, 4 children. One that's 22, one that's 9, one that's 6, and a little girl that's 3 years old.
Congratulations. You've got somebody tugging at your heart at 3 years old. You got a ways. And plus, you got somebody in a position to make you a grandpa pretty soon. So yeah, I'm a great grandpa, and I am a great grandpa because I'm a great, I'm great at grandpaing, but I'm a great grandpa too because I have a young grand that, anyway. But listen, we're in a circumstance here where, you know, I don't know about you, but Channing, my mother raised me. She said, if I ever catch you in a lie, all I can do is wonder how many I missed you in. And
Yeah.
I'd rather take a short spanking than lie to my parents. And I took a lot of short ones and long ones. But I found that was, even the long ones lasted shorter than them looking at me sideways and not, because I did know other kids that did not get along with their parents. And it was amazing to me that, so I have congratulations again for you taking your shot at being Big Daddy this morning. But as you do that, one of the things I was doing as I was introducing you was talking about not just your your legalese, but a couple of aspects of your legalese that I'm going to lean on this morning. One is your negotiations, and the other one is arbitration, because we need to negotiate between. There's some things that we just need to figure out how to do as a general, in the general sense here. As an attorney, you deal with people that, and sometimes I imagine you may have a client that is lying or lied their way into something and may even be trying to get you to perpetuate a lie. We've got a government right now that is seemingly leaning on this. I don't care if you catch me in a lie. I'll just keep saying it, and if you keep trying to evidence it against me, against, say, if you're a lawyer group, he's now blackballing lawyer groups. He's blackballing attorneys and judges. He's blackballing other companies. He's so I need you to help us figure out how to negotiate and arbitrate when we have a circumstance where we know we are should be more respected, but we are not. We should have more cohesiveness in our power against this common attack, but we don't. But as I describe our situation, it doesn't seem to be new news. As I try to describe this circumstance in a new way, that we've got this group that's out sabotaging the access to rights for a certain group of other people. And I say this to seniors, I'm blessed to have 100-year-old relatives. And they say, and they call me Butch. They say, Butch, it's always been that way. They said, if you're black in this country, it's always been that way. I said, man, but it seems to be. They said, well, if you're a poor white person in this country, it's been that way. But I say, if you're an immigrant in this country, it's been that way. We've had to come together with people we don't know, never heard of before, and fit the battle to Jericho. Well, anyway, what are your basic impressions of what's going on here? And let me shut up for a minute.
Well, I think right now it doesn't take a rocket science. Well, first of all, thank you for your question and taking the time to engage, particularly with the Inland Empire community regarding these critical issues and getting people something to listen to and think about and be able to have a constructive way to approach government or problems in the community. And you doing that for literally decades is, just been invaluable to our community, and I really appreciate you having me on this morning. Right now, our country is very divided on a number of issues, whether that's the economy, wage, economic inequality, issues of civil rights, issues of inclusion in the workplace, immigration, and national security. One of the things that I think that is happening right now is the country ultimately wants some level of change. They want a level of transparency. They want a level. People want things to happen that are going to improve the lives of everyday Americans. As a result, we have the current occupant of the White House who's there. I'm not sure that it will, the fact will belie that the desire to want change and that, the current occupant in the White House will be the solution to that change. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that, right? And I'm saying that not as a Republican versus a Democrat thing. I think, those labels, the American public, there's all kinds of polling out right now, whether it's CNN, ABC, and others who've done polling. The political parties are, the overwhelming majority of Americans are rejecting either label. But the challenge is now we're dealing with a level of incompetence that we haven't quite seen in a number of years. And I'll give you this analogy. When I didn't always agree with every policy of the Bush administration, but I felt Condoleezza Rice, even though I didn't agree with her policies, was a competent person in general and a learned person and was well qualified for her job without any question. Well, what we're dealing with now is a level of lack of confidence in our government as we look at what just happened this week with the signal situation. You're on an app which, across, as I understand it, across the United States, the national security apparatus states very clearly that signal is not a place for top secret information. It's not a place to be discussed. It's a place for private conversations. Mm-hmm. And when you have the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, the NSA directors, and others, that's not a private conversation. They weren't discussing, hey, what are you going to wear at the Easter egg roll? They were discussing a tax plan regarding the Houthi advancement of the United States military. And whether they don't like the reporter or do like the reporter, nonetheless, somebody put someone on this commercial app who didn't belong there, right? And that is a problem, no matter if you're a Republican, no matter if you're a Democrat. It has put our national security in question, and their response, this idea that you can deny and deflect your way out of it, really demonstrates a lack of integrity. And we're only 2 months in. So I'm very concerned with where we're going. I'm very concerned with the lack of integrity, the accountability, and responsibility that's being taken in this situation. So we'll see how it bears out in the coming days and weeks, because this is just the beginning. And if it usually starts off bad, it usually ends that way.
Well, Counselor, you brought up a couple of questions for me here. Your comment on their competence. It would seem that we are dealing with people who are not smart. However, I am not so racist that I could believe that simply because these people are white, they've accomplished all of the things that they've accomplished and reap the benefits that have softened their lives to the point that they have. These are wealthy people.
Well,
They're not stupid. Now, let me step across this bridge here, because I know that I'm wondering, are they doing this? Let's use the word sabotage. Let me go there real quick. Now, when I say that they're not stupid, what do you think? Now, I think that they're operating not just as one of the people on that signal call, was actually in the Kremlin at the time of the call. Now, how we keep skipping over that part, worrying about the fact that we had a journalist on the call. I don't know if somebody was actually trying to alert us, and through letting a journalist get there, because when you get sucked into a conspiracy that's deeper than you even imagined, and I would hope that some of these people are smart enough to realize that, whoa, wait a minute. Even though the president may be leading this, he is operating in a way that makes it look like his hands are clean while he's got us out here sabotaging America, doing things that are totally illegal, and none of us have been declared immune. And what they were doing has been declared. I mean, everybody in the military says that if some regular person had done what these people did, they'd be in the slammer. Or have you heard that, or am I?
I don't tend to, the broader plan and.
Well, no, I mean just that part
I'm not sure of it, but I will say this. From a basic level,
I don't want you to comment
about it.
I don't want you to comment yet on their sabotage title, because I know I'm pushing.
You said they were accomplished.
I'm pushing that on you kind of quick. I don't want you to feel like you got to answer that one yet. Please, let's just leave that one on. Leave that on the table.
I do want to go over the fact that you said they were accomplished. Well, that's okay. Something that is.
I thought you said accomplices.
Different. Accomplished.
Sorry.
When we talked about, I'm going to give you an example, and these are Republican individuals. General Colin Powell. Prior to being the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, over the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he had an illustrious career in the United States military. Condoleezza Rice was a scholar and a diplomat of the First Order, in that she was also the provost of Stanford University as well. These people don't have those kind of accomplishments.
Absolutely.
He had not raised in a level of command that generally would be over the Department of Defense, because he would have never and I do appreciate every veteran and the service that they've had in the United States military, but neither Tulsi Gabbard or Pete Hegseth had raised to a level of command above, of anyone who has held that position in literal decades. So let's not put them on the level of qualifications because they just don't have them. They did serve in Congress. I mean, I don't even know if, no, Pete Hegseth never even served in Congress.
No.
Tulsi Gabbard did, but they don't have the basic qualifications, at least of any of their predecessors. So let's not talk about qualifications because they just don't have them.
I enthusiastically agree with you. The thing that I'm suggesting, though, is that, and as I said, moving down the line here, the person that appointed them knows their lack of qualifications. And I think the enthusiasm that they have for following directions and trying to properly place their lips on his hips, he knows that he put the right people there to sabotage America. And say, well, Wallace, you got to be. He wouldn't do that. Okay, fine. I would say maybe he wouldn't do that there, except that I'm now looking at also the attack from Mr. I can't speak good English, but I'm going to, get rid of all of the good English-speaking people in charge of all of the agencies in America, Musk. He's sabotaging America for sure. Or is he? Maybe I should ask that as a question. When we talk about, and they are quick to come to his aid and say that people are terrorizing Tesla, and I'm not one that says they should be setting cars. Because I'm not into the setting cars on fire deal, but I do understand, and I, as you as a arbitrator, a negotiator, we know that people do things that are there to make a point, and so. What do you feel in terms of my statement about this attack on America through our agencies, this sabotaging of our traditional forms of expressing our morality in government? Where are we there?
Well, I think, as someone who's been elected official myself, who led a number of reforms and right sizing and right aligning an organization to better accomplish its mission and be more efficient with resources, I think it is incumbent on every public official to be able to make an assessment of the resources, how they're being allocated. Are they focused on mission critical endeavors, and whether or not there should be some reorganization to help the organization be more efficient, especially in light of taxpayer dollars. So the idea of doing that is not a problem. I think, that's not an issue. The issue that we have now with the current way it's being handled is that there was no plan, there was no study, and just going there like a bull in a china shop as opposed to being strategic, right? I also think, and that is leaving government in a lurch where the government itself is being unstable. The services that individuals want and expect, for instance, in the Social Security Administration is a critical department for, Americans, particularly for aging Americans, and them being able to have basic sustenance related to their housing, their food, so forth. And so them removing people indiscriminately is now starting delays of individuals being able to receive their payments. Also, when we look at the IRS and the potential delays that could occur there for individuals ready to get their tax returns, it's very concerning. A matter of fact, not just concerning, is to a degree irresponsible in how this is being dealt with. Also, I think that it is not being transparent or direct when you state that individuals who are probationary employees, well, as a probationary employee, you're just that. You're on probation until you can get a permanent and get a property interest in your job. That is correct. But to have an employee who had a positive performance review that met standard or exceeded standard to turn around 2 weeks later because of a change of administration to say that we're letting you go for performance issues is just disingenuous, and it demonstrates a lack of integrity. And so I'm very concerned with, us being able to get the services that all Americans want. I'm also concerned with the lack of integrity that it demonstrates. And again, it's a challenge for our country to operate without integrity. That's something that is needed. That's what the American people want. And so I'm very disappointed. And I think there's going to be substantial ramifications from that in trying to get the best and the brightest minds who are public servants at heart to take those jobs, oftentimes at a much lower rate than it would be in the private sector, and do that. And so I'm very concerned about the way that this has been handled. When Bill Clinton, whether you agree with him or not, did the Contract for America and reformed the size of government and made it more efficient, he did it with a plan. He did it with working with the Congress, which we haven't talked about yet, the congressional oversight role regarding the executive branch and what they're supposed to do. But he did that with the Congress, and they came up with a plan. He sat down with Newt Gingrich and other congressional leaders, and they came to a plan, and then they implemented it. Now, did everybody love the plan? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me interrupt a second before my feeble mind demonstrates itself again. When we talk about when I talk about the sabotage, which sounds rough and mean way of saying things, I feel much more comfortable now talking about sabotage and cheating and just outright planning to not plan, because you put it so well, defending or not defending, but explaining, in a very civilized way, the fact that we've got people who are smart enough to run their own business, who've decided to run our common business in a way that's going to wreck the business. And if we don't do something about it soon, but you expect that something will be done soon, and that repercussion may indeed be as loud as the noise that they are concerned about. To me, I think that someone sees the benefit of a civil war. Someone sees the benefit of chaos and confusion in the streets. Someone sees the benefit of being able to become the dictator, the only voice that counts, and that by making certain moves that everybody knows will not be totally accepted, at least he opens the door so that it's something that my wife and I said the other day. Wow, the great insurance policy for Mr. Trump right now is Mr. J.D. Vance. Because the only thing worse than Trump being Trump is J.D. trying to be Trump. So the pattern that they're setting, this treasonous, your attorney, praise the Lord, thank you for being that. A couple of years ago, there were some black men in Florida who were enticed into getting some arms and enticed to talking on the phone about some resurrection or revolution and going to Washington, D.C. And they had to be talked into talking about it. But they were entrapped and they were put in jail. We see much more treasonous conversation. The things that they say about judges. Have you ever heard people talk about judges like this and not have some kind of repercussion? Or am I just expecting too much, watching too much TV or something?
Well, there is always, from the executive branch, been a healthy competition for oversight. The judicial branch. That's why our founders made the three branches of government: executive, legislature, and judicial. And the judicial to ensure and really check the power of the executive branch and make it required that if you wanted to do certain, if you wanted to operate outside of your constitutional authority, that the judges would be able to assess and make a determination that that was outside the scope and there wasn't sufficient legal standing to do that. I think what we're seeing now is, it is not unusual for an executive, whether a governor or a president, to have a qualm with the slowness that it takes to bring change in government, but the disregard and disparaging of the judicial branch is what I think is unprecedented and is really dangerous now. We are a nation of laws. No one is above the laws, not even the President of the United States. And what he's attempting and the way he's attempting now to characterize what is occurring, that if a judge doesn't agree that we would have, potentially should be impeached. I thought it was very good that Justice Roberts came out and spoke and talked about the process in order to send a subtle but important message to the president to stay back in your lane. Because right now, Congress is really the one that has abdicated their jobs right now. I think for our congressional members and senators, they are failing at their job, whether it is to pass a budget, whether it is to actually do the hard work of passing laws. There's majorities in both the Senate and the House that align with the president's party, and they should do the hard work of deliberating and putting bills together so the president can sign them and then go about their business and then accept the consequences that the positive ones that could occur and the negative ones. And so that's what I'm seeing is a real problem, is our constitutional democracy being challenged in a way that we've never seen before, all for one person. And that's the part that's very concerning to me.
Very cool.
And our congressional mayors, our congressional, our members of Congress and Senate are just completely abdicating their job right now.
You at the beginning,
and not even from the standpoint of in agreement. It's like you have an assignment. They have an assignment to perform certain functions, and they're failing in that assignment. Whether or not they agree with the president and want to implement his agenda, that's their prerogative. But they have an assignment that they have a certain role and responsibility in that they are supposed to do as part of the process that they're not doing.
But the fact that they've all rolled over to the number that they've rolled over makes them appear like accomplices. You used the word accomplishers earlier, and I mistook the word for These guys are part of the problem. Their accomplishments have been lost in the fact that they are accompanying the president's trip here. They have, like you say, abdicated their responsibilities. I think, once again, this cult-like attitude is, why would all of these people, why would they do this? Is it for power? How? I can't understand it, but I can understand it, and I can say some words and say some things about it that may or may not be true, but they need to be argued. This quest for power, this quest for relationship with Russia, our traditional, since World War II, World War I, enemy, if we're going to have one, the casting away of our friends to absorb this enemy. I'm stuck on the word sabotage. I'm stuck on the word traitor. I'm stuck on the words that indicate a movement toward white supremacy simply based on, he may have been our enemy, but at least he's white. I've heard this president stand up and say, why can't we get more immigrants from places like Eastern Europe, basically? I understand that, as black people, it's easy for me to understand diversity because as we go to any black homecoming, family reunion, we see the world right there. I mean, we see from black people to blue-eyed blonde people. And they're all black in the sense that they share our culture. So I can't have a loving family reunion and be racist based on people's skin color. I am very much, however, prejudiced based on morality and how you act at the house, how you perform at the party, how you deal with others at the intersection, and that's what I'm really, really concerned about. When we look at the movement to say Canada, our best friend, our great border friend, and Mexico, who should be our best friend and border friend, we want to treat them like total enemies because we have a conflict with our desire to have workers who are low wage. We need workers, but we don't want to pay them. But we do want to pay them a little bit, and we don't want to. So we're in a constant conflict about the truth of who we are and what we really need, and from our leadership to at the highest level to the lowest level. How do we negotiate this, counselor? How do we come out of knowing that we've been living a lie or that we consistently live within the parameters of a lie or a half lie? How do we work our way into this deep enough that we can accept where we are and make the changes necessary to demonstrate some type of respect for what we need to be and a route to getting there without throwing the baby and the wash water out? That's our job. How do we do that? Now, as leaders, and I appreciate that you've taken on a private leadership position as well as a public leadership positions in the past. And you're a daddy, so I know you ain't playing. What are we going to do?
Well, that is a lot in that question.
Meant to be.
I think, yes. I think one thing is, first of all, I mean, from myself, I'm a man of faith, and going to the Bible, going to the Word in these kind of moments, and being in prayer, I think are very important because a lot of the answers are not at our fingertips. A lot of what the next step is beyond our own understanding, and I think you have to hold on to what the good book says, and you have to hold on to your faith, and that all things work together for the good for those who love the Lord. Outside of that, though, I think, whether or not, as somebody who's a negotiator who comes in oftentimes and there's a complex problem in government or business owners having a complex problem, not just with bilateral parties, but oftentimes multilateral parties, and they're asking for answers and solutions that's going to create either a beneficial outcome, right? The challenge so in doing that, the first thing you have to do is assess where the parties are, right? What are the parties' motivations? What is the trust that the parties have between one another? And what is their communication style? What is their ultimate goal? And they have to figure that out in order to be able to do that. And I think right now, the president and his ideas about resetting NATO and resetting our relationships with our border partners, it isn't clear. We're trying to figure out the advantage. Should we be looking at our relationships across the world in order to make sure that it's at America's advantage? I think that could be a valid question. Is the way we're going about it truly getting to that question and addressing and having the issue? I can't say that it does. I'm not privy to all of the national security reports and intelligence reports and other information I hope and assume that they're going off of. But then at the same time, getting back to our first question, But if your main person, your national security advisor, your Secretary of State, and your Secretary of Defense are all incompetent, then how can you get good? How can you get, whether it's from a process standpoint or outcome standpoint, how can you get to where you want to get to if the people around you are still incompetent in performing their job? That's the challenge that we have, I think, in this moment in trying to figure out what are the right relationships. How do we reset the relationships in a way that is advantageous to America? And I don't have all the answers, but I don't think this group, the president, the current administration, based on what they're doing and how they're going about it, they don't have any answers to. The difference is I'm here at my house and I'm storing over a bowl of cereal. They're actually in the positions of authority,
Right.
and not being able to perform their job. So that's the scary part. That's the real scary part.
And here I am saying, well, something that's scary, even worse, is that they're doing it on purpose. That ignorance is ignorance is a plan.
In working in government, some of this stuff. I mean,
let's get it. Let's be
strategic ignorance. But working in government, you'd be surprised how often these people, you would actually want them to have. We would wish they actually had a plan.
That's what I mean.
You would
That's
feel
what
more
I mean.
comfortable if there was a sinister plan.
That's what I mean.
But oftentimes they don't have. Some of these folks don't have a plan.
If I'm in charge and I plan to put the Three Stooges over in charge of anything, I know that what's going to happen is going to be stooge-worthy. And so I don't really have to worry about them. Once I put the Three Stooges and tell them to make the phone calls, they're going to do some stuff that's going to be so distracting that you won't be paying attention to how my left hand is over here manipulating even more, trying to figure out, if somehow I live to be another, 10, 12 years, I want to be able to do that as president, because as soon as I'm no longer president, they'll realize how naked I've been running around here. And, I got to stay president and stay in power in order to not go to jail. His friend Steve Bannon said yesterday that, well, if he doesn't be president in the 28, he's going to jail. They're already talking about, well, we're the Congress. I guess we could change and make it possible for him to be president for 3 terms. It's happened before. The differences of looking at history and saying, well, how did Germany allow Hitler to even occur? All of those smart people, they could read the signals. They could see everything that was taking place. How did they let this guy? Why in the world would all of those people and their family allow their family to go to South with Jim Jones, that cult operator? How would anybody could tell this was a cult when they looked at it from a distance or even up close? How could that happen? Well, here we are. And I'm asking right now, am I the only one that's looking at this like this? I see a cult following. I see a man that has, I used to be enough of a street guy to be able to keep up with a few of the street people, and maybe knew a couple of folks who was at the top echelons of pimping and stuff. And they used to have what they called the, Pimp of the Year contest. Well, when Trump won president the first time, since that time, they've not had the Pimp of the Year contest. They've had this Pimp of the second place Pimp of the Year contest, because the Pimp of the Year, since he took president and became noticeable by other pimps, Trump has been named the Pimp of the Year by all of the top pimps in the world. And that's from human trafficking. I mean, nobody moves more people across borders than he does. To counterfeit movements with crypto. He's got him a coin with his face on it. Listen, wake up, people. Wallace is crazy, and I'm
Well,
talking enough crazy enough that I don't want him to come by my house and get me, so I'm adding a little, hyper to it. But y'all better watch this dude and all the people that he's going to leave
well,
behind. It's scary, scary, scary. Protect me, negotiate me out
well,
of this thing.
I
Advocate.
think, well,
Give me another way to
I
look
think
at it.
what I'm gonna, well, another way of looking at this that I'll say is there's a lot of Americans that are frustrated right now with the efficacy and effectiveness of government. I think, I would say more to the Democratic Party right now. We got to figure out how to reach those people. We also have to figure out our priorities in government. I think, because if you really look at it, our policy around some core issues, I think illegal immigration, the economy, education, I think as the Democratic Party, for those who are involved in the leadership, those positions aren't aligning with the kind of change that the American people want to see. And the other side has been very effective at being able to weaponize some very visceral wedge issues in a way that, I think the Democratic Party has not been able to properly speak to and be able to present a package of ideas. Because even when you look at immigration and what's going on, well, President Obama actually deported more people than Trump did his first year, and Trump is not even in a way to be able to deport. Not to say that should be the goal, because it's definitely, I have my thoughts about that, and that's not necessarily the goal, but he had a strong position in protecting the country and ensuring that integrity of our borders. And so now, because it was, maybe in the last administration handled the way it should have been handled, it left this wide open where now that's his number one issue, and he's running on that issue. And he's doing things like deporting people who are just merely speaking a different idea. The young woman.
We're about out of time here. The quickest hour on radio. So I want to curve this back over to our solutionary aspect of it. I'm a little afraid, but I'm not as scared. I'm a little apprehensive, but I'm still enthusiastic. And I'm asking and saying that we've been here before. We've actually, some will say we've never left this position. And how do we get out of it? We get out of it by getting into it. How do we get into it? We get into it by approaching and dealing with each other. Our neighbors, we need to know who our neighbors are. We need to be friendly with our neighbors. We need to interact with our neighbors. Emergencies and catastrophes take place in California at a higher level than possibly other places. But that every opportunity, those create opportunities. So we have what it takes to make it right. We have to demonstrate some compassion. We have to demonstrate some concern. And fortunately and unfortunately, there are people around who are less fortunate than you, no matter who you are. And there is someone that you can help. There's something that you can see that can be done, that you can do to make it better. This is where our strength comes from, seeing things that we can make better and making them better. Hugging that baby, that's what it takes. Hug the babies, hug each other, understand that our problems are simply opportunities for us to show our compassion and problem solving. We have to get along with each other. We have to all be arbitrators. We do have to all negotiate and understand that other people are, in their minds, absolutely right. And in their minds, they have a right to feel and do what they want to do. And short of putting their hands on you and doing some kind of physical negative thing, I say we should be able to talk it out. I'm not encouraging anybody to take a butt whipping. But sometimes, on the way to a butt whipping, you learn a lot. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts,
Okay.
and not just here this Sunday morning, but what you do every day, Channing. You're an important
Thank you.
attitude. You are an important function. You are an important person in the Inland Empire. We need you to keep doing what you do.
Thank
So
you.
please keep doing
Thank
that.
you for your time.
Oh, and you have my time, and we appreciate it. We'll be back next week
Thank you.
under
All
two
right.
circumstances. One,
Bye.
if the good Lord's willing, and the creek don't rise. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. This program has been brought to you by Empire Talks Back, has been brought to you by West Side Story Newspaper and the Improve Association. God bless you. See you next week.
You know, it's just you and me. It's a nice classic solo dolo episode. It's nice to rock and roll with you, man.
Grooving, grooving.
Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move.
We're on the move. Yeah, yeah.
Ain't no stopping us now. We've got the groove.
We've got the groove. Oh. There's been so many things that held us down, but now it seems like
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carton. President Trump says he will not be firing anyone involved in the Signal group chat controversy. During the recent attack against Houthi rebels in Yemen, a journalist was accidentally added to a group chat with high-ranking military officials detaining U.S. war plans.
How the same American media is really interested in forcing the President of the United States to fire someone because of a Signal chat.
Vice President J.D. Vance on his recent trip to Greenland. In an interview with NBC, Trump kept calling it fake news and said no one involved, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, would be fired. When asked if he still has confidence in Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Trump said he does. The Prime Minister of Denmark will be visiting Greenland just days after Vice President J.D. Vance was there to promote a U.S. takeover of the island. Vance told reporters Friday that President Trump said we have to have the Danish territory and, quote, we can't just ignore the president's desires. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen called Vance's trip disrespectful and said, quote, this is not how you speak to your close allies. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen released a statement saying his upcoming visit to Greenland will strengthen the bond between Denmark and its territory. Billionaire Elon Musk will be giving millions